So I was hoping that I wouldn't get to this section of the game this quickly. The, Hidan and Kakazu part of the game, because there's something that I really wanted to talk about specifically with Shikamaru. And this comes from recent events. So yesterday was Evolution. If you don't know, that is the biggest fighting game tournament in North America, possibly the world, but I don't know that far. And it's huge, it's big, and one of my favorite games was featured on a side tournament, BlazBlue Central Fiction, where what was his name? I only know him by his nickname, Bobby. Took home the crown and became the Evo champion with a character that wasn't is very much underappreciated, bottom of the tier list for lack of a better term, named Celica. Now, while congratulations to Bobby, he was not he was not the reason I wanted to talk about this. It was actually one of the other competitors named Guy Mam who was playing Naoto against Nine, and I really seeing him play and absolutely shut down this character got me fired up, and I really wanted to play Naoto and potentially do that same thing with Nine, because in most of basically she terrorizes most of the cast, and most of the characters that I like to play, she terrorizes. So, playing a character who I thought was cool and could dance around the screen like that and get her to not play the game in some sense, I was really there for. I was really excited to do once I stopped watching the BlazBlue finals. However, something went awry. Now, not necessarily awry. That's a terrible word to use it for it, right? So what happened was I was talking to God, and I talked to God about this and said, "Man, God, I'm really excited to play Naoto in this game. It's been a minute. I've definitely tried my hardest to play this character in the past, but I think now I can do it." I didn't exactly say that. I'm paraphrasing, right? And I'm going to paraphrase God when I say this next part. He told me there is an easier way to do this, and it hit my head that there are easier characters in the game who can shut Nine down and stop the characters who I don't like playing against when I play my main Kagura. And so that character in particular was named S. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because Naoto is a very difficult character to play at a high level. If you don't know, he does a lot of things which are called dash cancels, where in order to get the full extent of damage and or corner carry out of any of Naoto's moves, he has to dash cancel them and cancel them in a very tiny window. I believe it is 9 frames big. And doing so consistently is not the easiest thing in the world. It is possible. It's kind of rhythm based. You gotta have to get your you gotta get the muscle memory in first, but once you do that, there is a rhythm to how Naoto moves. And so, or rather, how the moves work with Naoto. But doing so at a competitive level is very difficult, and you can see this in how Guy Man plays. But with that being said, S, on the other hand, is a very simple character, and you don't really have to think about that. Now, there are a lot of things that go into this, right? Okay, let me bring it back. So the reason why I'm telling you all this is not only because it's possible to drop a combo in a very high, intense situation, but really what I'm getting at is there is a bigger game to play in any competitive games rather than what you are seeing on screen. So what I mean by this is that there is a game you play against the character, and there is a game you play against the player. The game against the player is much more important than the game against the character, because it's the player who is influencing the character to do whatever it is that they're trying to do. If you cannot play against the player, then you're going to be in for it, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And in my past, when I've tried to play difficult characters, they took a lot longer for me to get to that point where I played against the player rather than the character, because I was too focused on doing things with the difficult character than I would be trying to play an easier character. So, to bring it back to what I was saying, I have grown to play. I'm able to do a lot of dash cancels with Naoto now because, I've been working on it for almost 10 years. But with that being said, there is a much easier solution to this, and that is a solution to work smarter rather than harder. And in that case, I'm able to get to the character, not the character, get to the player, playing against the player rather than specifically battling against the character. And it's a very good thing that Rock Lee is on screen, because I wanted to talk about him too. So in this regard, Lee is a fan favorite character. Everybody loves this guy, and he is everyone uses him as the example for, if you try your hardest, things will work out for you. Well, that's not actually the message of Naruto, believe it or not. That's more or less the message of Dragon Ball Z, but not necessarily what Naruto is about. And you know this because this character does not get a lot of shine in the series. He gets one amazing fight, and he's a background character for the rest of Naruto. It's Might Guy, who takes over the, taijutsu stuff after that one fight Lee had with Gaara. And, there's a different conversation we can have about Guy. But nevertheless, for Rock Lee, he did his best. He put as much physical effort as he could in it. But at some point, there is just a wall that he hit, right? And whether you want to say that the wall is Kishimoto writing or, some kind of physical thing, there is just a wall that Rock Lee hit where he couldn't really overcome it. I remember in the fight with Kimimaru, why are the names so similar? With Kimimaru, he commented on Lee saying that his attacks are far too direct. And you know what? 100%, I think he has a great point in that, because Lee, he really can't do anything else but fight hard. Now, let's take into example Shikamaru. Shikamaru is not necessarily someone who is impressive for his physical attributes. In fact, he does everything he can to be as lazy as possible in the series. But nevertheless, he gets a lot of the coolest moments of the side characters, to the point where, he beats Hidan in a fight. Like, straight up. But it is a long, strategic battle that Hidan doesn't even know he's playing. And because of that, he is able to work smarter for his victory and not harder. And so that's another thing about Naruto that you can say is much more emphasized about Shippuden. Suddenly this became a Naruto conversation, but it's something that's really emphasized about Shippuden in particular, was that now that the characters are going up against the Akatsuki, they don't have the same kind of luxury they did when they were fighting other kids, because the Akatsuki are, grown men. They've seen a lot of the tricks out there, especially Kakuzu. He was literally there since the beginning. But the characters have to work smarter and not necessarily harder. You see this in how Naruto takes Kakuzu down. You see this in how Sasuke takes Deidara down. And, it's very apparent throughout the series from here on out. But, to bring it back to what I was mentioning before, there are just situations where, despite the fact that you physically can do something to the best of your ability, there are just smarter ways to go about it. And you know what? It also reminds me of back when I used to do YouTube videos for my old channel. I would put in so much effort in writing, in editing, and doing all these things. And it definitely did not immediately benefit me. Everything works out for the good of those who love him, right? But in that channel, it did not immediately benefit me in there. It will in time, but for that channel, it did not benefit me. And so I come to the conclusion now that it's not necessarily how many edits you can fit into a video, nor is it how what's the word I'm looking for? Nor how many, clever things you can say in a script. It's more so how it's all presented and how you can deliver it all. That's my takeaway from that. And the reason why I wanted to, say this is because at one point, I swear I hit triangle twice there. At one point, I remember, my triangle inputs are not coming out today. At one point, I remember seeing a video on YouTube that was like something edits. Like, oh, that's right. I can't do my ultimate jutsu for this fight. I forgot. Like something edits. Like, this will increase your editing ability. And I'm looking at the thing and I'm going, how on earth is this going to benefit me? As a YouTuber, imagine saying that, but I come from a place where I've done as much editing as I could. And I've come to the realization that I can edit as much as I want. I can put in as much hard work as I want. But if I don't apply myself smartly, none of it matters. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that.